we feel that we're not getting the service from our taxpayers' money at the moment. To see these figures now higher than they ever were before Brexit.
Well, I didn't personally, it wasn't an issue for me, Brexit, as Brexit. Mine was more economic than this. I think the interesting thing is that you've not heard a squeak out of anybody of all the Hong Kong people we've taken in, which were legitimate refugees. Yeah. You know, we are a compassionate nation. We are a multicultural nation, a very tolerant nation, and I think we've got a very good record of welcoming people into this country. But what we're saying is you can't come in illegally, and frankly, you know, we're not allowed to break the law, so why should we others break the law? And I think you know, the church has entered into this ring of debate, and I think they'll find increasingly that they're detached from what most of their parishioners are thinking about.
The few they've got left, that is.
And, well, you said Andrew, I mean, it is a diminishing audience, unfortunately. And I think this is a shame.
You're good mates with Boris Johnson. The Mail reported this week that Gita Harry, who was Boris's press secretary, said there was a stand-up fight between Boris and the King, when he was Prince of Wales, actually in Rwanda at a Commonwealth summit last year. Do you know much about that?
Well, you do like stitching me up on this programme. I thought you were friends.
Yeah.
Well, we did I was before we came. Well, Jonathan might have an opinion on that.
Yeah. I was in Rwanda for that event, and my sense is, and I saw the two together, and there wasn't any. I think Guito was probably stretching it a bit. Clearly, the Prince of Wales, or then Prince of Wales, now our great King, has views on this subject. One thing's for certain: he would never tell anyone his views on the subject, and I think Boris has denied that this thing happened. I'm sure there probably was a conversation, but it had been done privately between the two of them, and neither of them rightly are describing the events around it. But the King would have seen, as did Boris, that Rwanda, Kigali, the capital, is an incredible place. I mean, it is extraordinary. People go out every Saturday and clean their neighbourhood for 3 hours by law. It's an extraordinary developing country, and it's got a wonderful climate, and it's a very modern city. And I think you know, we at our peril criticise countries like this because I think it's an extraordinary place.
Can we ask you about the Brexit laws? Now, Rishi Sunak pledged a bonfire of these laws. 4,000 of them were going to go by December the 31st. Kemi Badenoch, the Secretary of State, now said yesterday, or she's saying it today, more like 600. That's a real letdown.
Well, it is a big letdown because the Brexit dividend, in my view, has always been to have 10% lower tax than our competitors, basically Europe and the United States, and 10% less regulation. And we're going in the wrong direction on both, which is going to make it very difficult for our economy in the future to get any growth out of the economy. This is, you know, just another step in that direction. You kind of do think that the forces of Brexit, of Remain, actually not Brexit, but Remain, and the forces of pro-Europe are at play in a lot of activity at the moment in the civil service.
She said she couldn't cope with the civil service intransigence on the issue.
Well,
she just gave in.
Yes, and it is actually very difficult to repeal laws. When I was in government, we had to get rid of 33% of our laws. That was the coalition initiative. And you can get rid of the first 10% like that because they're redundant, moribund, etc. When you start getting into the next lot, it's real trench warfare because you've got to get it through. You're going to have a discussion with your civil servants, many of which would have put the laws in themselves, so you're pushing water uphill in that regard. And then, of course, you've got to get it through Parliament if you're going to repeal things. So it's not easy, but you have to work very hard at it. I think what's for the future, Francis Maude, who I had a long conversation with last night, has been tasked with this review of the civil service. And it'll be very interesting to see what he comes up with in this review. He tells me he's 8 months pregnant, so in a month's time he'll come out with the review. It's taken up a lot of his time. He, of course, ran the Cabinet Office for a long time, was partly responsible for civil service reform. I obviously am not going to give anything away that he said to me, but he said, I think he shares most people's view that the system isn't working.
It's the blob.
We're going to keep you with us for a minute, if you don't mind.
Well, not if you're going to ask me awkward questions.
I've got one more question I want to ask you.